Welcome to the Age of the Overlord, or Age of Zarc, actually. Don't beg the 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. We just made our Age of Overlord video literally yesterday, and we got some huge news last night that essentially sends this set down the path of Zarc here, which is reprints for the Animation Chronicle. Now, you probably were looking at last night's reveals, you know, with the Illusionist stuff and the Arcana Force, and you're like, okay, but why would they reprint all of this Supreme... Look at all this Supreme King Dragon stuff. Look at all of that. Because this essentially means that Age of Overlord has been dedicated into a set that's going to have to do with, yes, Zarc. Zarc is the only dragon at this point in time that has not gotten, you know, a new form. You know, we've gone through, we've upgraded Clearwing, Starving Venom, you know, Odd Eyes, Dark Rebellion, but, you know, no matter how many times you combine their forces together for Captain Planet or Captain Pollution, whatever you want to call Zarc at this stage in time, you know, we have to get a retrain version of it eventually. Yeah, it is a fairly newer monster, and to retrain something on this scale already, but it was a very popular card. I mean, whatever Arc V was trying to bring to the table actually is really nice. So with these reprints here, with all of this Supreme King stuff getting confirmed as reprints here, I actually believe that this confirms, yes, Age of Overlord is going to be pretty heavily Zarc related. I also want to give a shout out here. Also, we talked about the embrace of Arcana Force yesterday. This card, I think, also is going to open up the door for some potential reprint stuff or slash new stuff for Arcana Force as well. I mean, the Age of Overlord, I mean, let's be honest here, Arcana Force very much had that pinnacle boss monster energy that you were very used to seeing, you know, kind of from this era. And the fact that they just went ahead and they tossed one particular card into the set here kind of opened up the door to saying, hey, you know, we're kind of going to bring this together here so that you can, you know, enjoy some of these extremely new power cards overall. So I can only imagine getting the ability just to add one light barrier. I think that they could definitely make some new extensions to that archetype, but there's a lot to really be seen here. Now, with Zarc essentially being confirmed here for the power-up, we usually get 8 to 9 cards at this point in time, and that means that, well, how many of those are going to be Supreme King Dragon retrains? So here's the most interesting thing about retraining a big boss monster like this. Because all of the different dimensional dragons essentially were, you know, toggleable into this thing, you're going to have to look at all the Supreme King Dragon cards and I guess, like, consider if there's something that you want to pick up. When you can see information like this kind of leak over, and you're like, all right, well, if they're reprinting all of this, and this pretty much gives an indicator, Age of Overlord, things line up, do you need to even pick up, you know, Supreme King stuff? The only thing that I can think of that's even worth anything of a mention for this is literally just Secret Darkworm to initially pick up, because it was the only real thing that ever had crazy value at the end of the day. And let's call it what it is. I know we're not probably going to get Greedy Venom back anytime soon unless it gets some sort of errata to a once per turn, which, I mean, it probably isn't going to, because they announced the reprint for it. The errata for that would have been a choice, which means you could probably see Greedy Venom getting unbanned to probably 1 come TCG later on in the year. If we're getting Age of Overlord, this should be, well, our super late set in the year, so should put us at what, October, November, I believe, for this. So that's something that you gotta think about, is if they're gonna push Zarc support, they're probably gonna bring back Greedy Venomy to 1, or the Supreme King Greedy Venomy Dragon, so that you can at least, you know, be able to play it in-house for the archetype. I at this point in time, I can only speculate for what they could do for it. I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed a Zarc retrain at this point in time. The biggest thing the deck had going for it was its pendulum scales. I mean, Supreme King Gate 0 was really good. I could see them making another gate this could be the first time we see like a generic pendulum scale that could act as both scales, as like a universal system. I've always wanted them to, you know, build a one scale system so that you could swing the pendulum a right rack around to itself. But I digress. I feel like that'd be a very interesting system that I feel like that they could explore. But with all the interactions we already have for Zarc, because we do have the Supreme King Dragon Trap, that's another really big thing. We already have the thing that lets you pay half of your life, bring out Zarc, and then you can split Zarc into the little dragons. So if you're going to give Zarc support at this point in time, you know, are you going to give them more little dragons, or are you just going to make this like a mode change kind of Zarc where, you know, you have the different dragons that you can shift into it? Are we going to have more of a callback to being able to use the other versions of the dragons? Because, I mean, all of the little dragons got different forms, you know, like they didn't have to be Supreme King versions of themselves. I mean, there were other versions of them, you know, for their own character development arcs that we could actually take advantage of. I could just, I mean, very easily just use one of those cards as a power. But if this is the case, I mean, you would have to make 4 retrains of Supreme King heavy boss monsters if you want to go down that path, unless you're just going to make one generic one. Because this didn't have anything to do with links, I don't think you're going to see a link monster for this particular era. But for Zarc itself, I don't think that there will be anything. I don't know what you can make it do. I mean, you could probably make it summon little Zarc when it gets destroyed, or, you know, when Zarc destroys itself, you could bring it up. But you've got to have, whatever you make for the new form, it has to be 1, easy to summon. 2, you would probably want to have an interaction with older Zarc because of how easy Zarc itself is to summon. And you would want it to be able to have interactions with the other Supreme Kings / the other forms of the cards. Now, overall, for the rest of the set, I still am pretty avid that we're probably going to see some sort of Arcana Force card in here. Even if it's 1 to 2 new cards, I would be extremely happy about that. Arcana Force is missing a lot of stuff, and you've got to keep in mind, with the last set, Konami proved to us that they're no longer afraid to put anime, manga / game cards into core sets. And I think that that's very, very important that you kind of take note of that at this stage in time, is if they're really going to start porting over all of these really, really weird cards from the video games going forward, I mean, that's a lot of stuff that they've had the chance to port from throughout all of the years. I mean, there are cards in those games that have been buried for 20 plus years that had literally no purpose, not existing, and we're finally backlogging into 20 years of cards to finally put them in. So I think that that's something very interesting, especially like, you know, the illusionist archetype or illusion archetype just getting dropped into the game here. You really have to kind of keep an eye on that, because that means going forward they can do more tie-ins with spellcasters to the illusion monsters, because it's pretty apparent that they want them to work together. They're just going to have to make new generic ways to do it. I wouldn't be surprised to see us, you know, get a searcher specifically for illusion monsters at some stage. I kind of have a feeling it's coming. Konami, I think at this stage, wouldn't print things the way that they have unless they have something coming, at least in the future sets. Especially, I think you'll probably get an illusion monster or 2 every set kind of going forward here to kind of power these up. I mean, Cyber's got a lot, but it's very clear that we're going back to like extreme DM era at certain points here with the cards that we're porting in. So I think that that's kind of cool. Like, the video game stuff is like an era that really hasn't been touched all that much, and it has so much cool unused material that you can see get filtered into this set. But it looks like this is probably going to be an Arc V theme set. It looks like, with everything that got revealed for the heavy reprints, I've got money that this is a Zarc set, and I do definitely think that you're going to see Arcana sit in here on the follow-up, and probably some sort of illusion support. I have hopes and dreams for the other things I would like to see in this set. You know, like the power-up stuff that they've been allocating would be nice, but Ododic needs some more love too. I don't know what you've got to do out here, but I'm hoping there's at least one Ododic card in this set, please. It would be very, very nice to see some love for Ododic. That way that, you know, we can be a little bit more excited, at least in terms of what we could get. I don't know why, but today seems like a reptile kind of day. So please, leave a comment down below and tell me, what do you think about the Age of Zarc? Patrons! Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.